Women play significant roles as workers, entrepreneurs, and service providers, actively contributing to social and economic development. However, their economic and human rights, as well as their contributions, often go unrecognized. Women face higher unemployment rates, dominate the unprotected informal sector, and typically hold part-time formal jobs in high-income regions. They also spend more time in unpaid care work, exhibit lower productivity levels, earn less than men for equivalent work, and are poorly represented in economic decision-making roles. In Nigeria, UN Women is actively promoting affirmative procurement policies and laws to support women-owned businesses. This initiative targets governance institutions and the private sector to enhance their capacity in implementing such policies, aligning with the national policy on women's economic empowerment approved and launched by the federal government in 2023. The WE policy is aimed at helping to bring about optimal development in Nigeria, with about 50% of its population made up of women. To address root causes of gender inequality, including unequal division of labor, discriminatory laws, exclusionary policies, constrained bodily integrity, and climate change, comprehensive policies and reforms are needed. These include recognizing and reducing unpaid care work, ensuring equal opportunities in employment, implementing equal pay for equal work, supporting women's transition from informal to formal employment, and enacting laws to eliminate workplace harassment and violence. These efforts aim to reduce poverty, achieve full employment and decent work, and also realize women's economic rights and decision-making autonomy. Today, on Policy Focus, we shall be looking at the Women's Economic Empowerment Policy. Since its launch, how much progress has been made so far? Welcome to the program. I am Lydia Odidiochi. Before we go on, here is our news update.
The Center for Financial Economics of the National Institute for Policy and Strategic Studies, NIPSS, Kuru, has graduated 29 participants of the Strategic Pension and Administration course free. The 5-day workshop had in attendance the representative of the Director General, NIPSS, Professor Fumi Paramalam, MNI, the Acting Head Center for Financial Economics, Dr. Solomon Gushibet, research fellows, members of staff, and participants. While reading the course brief, Dr. Solomon Gushibet said the course covers 16 thematic areas revolving around pension fund administration in Nigeria.
Transition from defined benefit scheme to contributory pension scheme, steps, issues, challenges, and prospects. We also dealt with investment guidelines for PFS, service delivery under contributory pension scheme, formulation and computation of pension income, a practical guide, choice of the right investment options under the CPS, and choice of income from retirement income options.
A communique was presented to the management of NIPSS by the chairperson of the course, Ajia Fatima Nana Ibrahim.
We commend the National Institute for organizing the course on the Strategic Pension Fund Administration, which has exposed us to various issues related to pension fund management, as well as the clear difference between the defined benefit scheme and the contributory pension scheme.
Speaking on their personal experience, Nuruddin Audi has this to say.
We have learned a lot of things right from the beginning of the course, which was on Monday, and to today. What we have done so far is the new pension scheme. The reason why government decided to migrate to the new pension scheme from the old one, the prospect, the advantages, the benefit, and also the issues prevalent in the scheme at the moment.
The participants were presented to the DG for graduation and award of certificates. Olamilekun Ogunshina, reporting for NIPSS Policy TV.
It's new, it's fresh, it's all about policies and strategies. Watch out for NIPSS Policy TV programs on NTA News 24. Tune in on Mondays, Tuesdays, Fridays, and Saturdays, 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. on DSTV Channel 419, GoTV Channel 26, Star Times Channels 101 and 433, and Free TV Channel 703. Miss this and miss out on policies that will affect you and our country. Join us. Welcome back. Like many African women, Nigerian women have a subordinate role to their male counterparts. There are twice as many women below the poverty line than men, and up to 19 times as many men in executive positions than women. Women's empowerment in Nigeria is an economic process that involves empowering Nigerian women as a poverty reduction measure. The project endeavors to fortify public policies and private practices to cultivate an environment conducive to the participation and contribution of women's small and medium enterprises to Nigeria's economy. Resource persons at a one-day harmonization and validation workshop in Abuja say the National Women's Economic Empowerment Policy document has great potential for completely transitioning women from having limited economic power to acquiring the skills, resources, and opportunities required to access and compete equitably in the markets. The Development Research and Project Center, which facilitated the meeting, explained that the objective of the program is to allow officials to brainstorm on the metrics that will be effective in coordinating, monitoring, and evaluating WE projects. In the course of the program, we will bring you details of that event. But now, we'll bring to you an exclusive interview with the Director of Studies, NIPSS, Professor Olufumilayo Paramalam MNI. Take a look.
Recently, a documentary was released that showed that in the world, Nigerian women are the most educated. For example, Nigerian women have the highest number of PhDs globally. Wow. Nigerian women have the highest proportion of entrepreneurial women on the African continent. Now, when you weigh that with our political representation, you find out that there's a huge disparity and a disconnect between the competence and capacity of Nigerian women and their representation in the global space. So that area, quite bad. But like I said, entrepreneurship, education, we are doing quite well, except in the area of rural access to education by the girl child. You find that in the rural areas, the girl child is still lagging far behind. In literacy, the girl child is still lagging far behind. Women over 45 are lagging behind their male counterparts in adult literacy. So in that area, it's good and bad news again. Now, I also need to talk about specific sectors such as the health sector, such as the science, technology, and innovation subsectors. You find out that women are not doing too well in those areas. In agriculture, women produce the food we eat. This is statistically proven that a large proportion of agricultural workers are female, but they own less than 10% of the land that they farm on. They do not own the factors of labor, and so they are largely just farm hands rather than having real access over the income that they farm. So even in the labor market, you find that women are still having low-collar, pink-collar jobs, low-income, pink-collar jobs. Very few of them attain the top echelon of corporate governance. But then again, there's good news. We just had Zenith Bank choosing its very first CEO as a female. We have the Ibukun Awoshikas and what have you. So it's a mixed bag, I would say. Invest in women and inspire inclusion, totally apt. Investing in women speaks to the fact that women comprise 50% of our human assets. And if they are human assets, you must invest in them in order to get the highest level of productivity out of them. So human capital development is the way that all progressive and productive countries have gone to maximize, to optimize their human resource base. Women are half of the human resource base. So you must be able to invest in the girl child, in women at all levels, in terms of education, on-the-job training, and health. Which is, I mean, a healthy population is a wealthy and productive population. So human capital investment is key. Investing in women means you're investing in half the human assets of your country. So, and it makes economic sense to do so. The other thing about Inspire Inclusion is that it has been proven in the business sector as well as in the public sector that wherever there is intentional inclusion in terms of policy direction, you find out that companies do better, countries do better. It was Christine Lagarde, the current president of the European Central Bank and the former IMF boss, who said, when women do better, countries do too. So yes, Inspire Inclusion is apt.
Being a professor of accountancy and also breaking the jinx of becoming the director of studies, the first one like that. Walk us through the story. What were the challenges you faced coming up, especially as a woman?
I would say there were strategic challenges, practical challenges, and structural challenges. So let me start from the issue of the structural challenges. Structural challenges refer to things that are embedded in society and institutions. You know that as women, there's this bias. There's this gender bias, there's this prejudice in which women are stereotyped. And the stereotype is definitely mostly negative stereotyping. And that stereotyping kind of puts women in a mold of, oh, women can't do it, women are too weak, women are not able, women are, one thing or the other. So you as a woman, you come to the table already with this prejudice against you. So that's part of the structural, the societal inhibitions. The practical ones are the fact that in development studies we say women have a triple development burden, which means because women are responsible for reproductive labor, childbearing, child rearing, elderly care, care for the sick, community care, and all of that, you find out that produces certain encumbrances that men don't have. So you have, for example, there's this image of people about to run a race, okay? Now, all these people are about to run a race. There are women on this side, there are men on this side. In front of the women, you have laundry, you have cooking, you have this, but the men have a clear path. They are able to run the race. But for women, you have all those hindrances on the road. So those are the practical limitations. What about the strategic ones? The strategic ones are issues around choice. In development studies, we say choice is a strategic resource. Sometimes women are told that, oh, you're a woman, you shouldn't choose that. Oh, you can't choose that. Because you're a woman, you should. For example, when I applied to be the director of studies, I had people outraged that I should even dare to consider myself worthy of applying to be director of studies. And I was told, people told me, that doesn't she remember she's a woman? She's applying, she's competing with men. And I was like, those are some of the things so those are strategic. It's about choice and the kind of choices that society holds up to you. Should you choose to be a pilot? Should you choose to be an engineer? Should you choose to be a diplomat? You understand? And those choices are not often open strategically to you as a woman. And then the strategic issue also has to do with on-the-job training. Many times when there are opportunities for training or for one thing or the other that has to do with your job, you find out that they look at the woman and say, oh, she's a woman. The men will need it more. So those are strategic limitations. Different limitations, but I will just mention those as a few.
Okay.
Yeah.
And in fact, looking from what you've told me now, all of us looking at it here and seeing you every day, probably one of the best director of studies they've ever had.
Thank God. Thank you for the compliment.
Now, we have a gender-sensitive DG. How has this helped the working environment?
Massively, massively. In 2017, I submitted a proposal for the establishment of a gender center. It took the coming of Professor Ayo Omotayo in 2022 to finally get the gender center up and running by 2023. So that's a massive, massive, Secondly, we are working at the behest of the DG. We are working on a gender policy for NIPSS, first time in history, and we are working on a sexual harassment policy. These are both initiatives of the DG. Thirdly, the DG has also mandated the library to set up a gender resource center. These are all because we have a gender-sensitive CD. Fourthly, and very significantly, for the first time in the history of the National Institute, we have 4 directing staff who are female. It has never happened. It has never happened. When I resumed here as Director of Studies, there was no single female directing staff, not even one. So it has helped massively having a gender-sensitive DG.
Now, tell us in just a few sentences, what happens when women lead?
Well, it depends on a number of things. I am not one to say that once a woman leads, it's all rosy, it's all good, it's all perfect. It depends on the capacity, the human capacity, the skills that she has. It also depends on the support system. But research has shown that women's leadership style is different from men's leadership style. Generally, this is talking generically now, not in every instance, but generally. And what does the research say? The research says that women tend to be more authentic leaders. They lead from who they really are. Women tend to be more consultative. In other words, rather than command and control, hey, you do this, go there. Women tend to want to consult, and lead with, let me find out what others think, and they don't feel afraid to consult with people or make it seem as if you're a bad leader if you're consulting. Then women also tend to be more empathetic leaders in the sense that they would look at a worker in the morning and say, what's happening? You don't look too good today. They will be concerned about the welfare and the well-being of people that they look. I remember last year there was a participant and he was not looking happy. I looked at him, like I saw, it was for about 2 days I observed him. Then one day I just said to him, I said, what's the matter with you? I've observed you're not okay. When he came to my office, the problem was massive and he was distressed and disturbed. But to God be the glory, after working together, and I've now brought it to the attention of the DG, we're able to work it out. In fact, after he left, he sent me a long message of appreciation. So women tend to be more empathetic in working with people.
Okay. Now, what can organizations do to help advance more women at leadership?
You see, organizations need to have an intentional gender and equal opportunities approach, strategy, policy, affirmative action, positive action. Why? Because there has been a history of systematic and structural disadvantage for women. It's just like what Nigeria did with nomadic education, recognizing that Fulani, herders and all of that had been systematically disadvantaged because of cultural and historical things. It's the same thing with the female. So there has to be intentional policies within the educational system, in the job, in the workplace, and everywhere there has to be an intentional policy to headhunt, to encourage the development, the human capacity development of the girl child. Because if you do not overcome these barriers, these structural barriers, you are not going to get enough women or the right type of women to come forward. So it has to be intentional, it has to be deliberate, it has to be focused, and it also has to address, this is one thing that is so important, address hidden barriers. Yes. So if you say, for instance, after all, we have an equal opportunity policy, it's not enough. There are certain barriers that even though the law is there or the policy is there, some women will not be able to take advantage. Because already from the home front, they are facing things that if you don't address them, they will not be able to take advantage of opportunities. So that is it.
Okay, maybe an advice to young, aspiring females on leadership as we mark this day.
Maybe two pieces of advice because of time. The first is don't sell yourself short. Don't internalize the negative patriarchal messaging that tells you are less than. You are less than your male counterpart. Don't believe it. Don't internalize it. Don't own it. So it's very important that women create their own self-identification narrative. Define yourself authentically based on who you are. Set up for yourself positive role models who will help you to see a better narrative than what the culture and the society holds up for you. That's number one. Number two, support other women. Gender solidarity is so important. Don't be a lone ranger. Don't just try to shine for yourself. Remember that other women are there, especially younger women coming behind you are there. Anytime you see a woman in a position of leadership, support her, draw close to her. If she's doing something wrong, go and advise her or find out from her. You understand? Don't be part of those who are spreading the lies, the negative, narratives and all of that. Pull her down syndrome, exactly. A lot of women have negative PhDs, not the doctoral one, but the pull her down syndrome. So it's important that women, debunk that narrative because I have worked with wonderful women. I've been mentored and I have mentored great women, and I know that women do work together well, and women do support each other when given the chance, and we should continue that culture of mutual support for women.
Okay, Prof, you just said a message to men. Of course, the men.
To men.
To men now.
Don't be afraid of strong women. I think for me, that's the greatest message. When a woman is empowered, it does not mean that a man is disempowered. We can be powerful together. A woman's power is not at the expense of a man's power. No. In fact, it is a strong woman that is the best support to any man and every man. The more you empower your woman, the more you are guaranteeing the future of your children, and even you in your old age, you will find that that woman you have invested in will be the one that will be your protection at the end of the day. So I think it's important that I need to let men know, Nigerian men know, that gender equality, gender equity is not about women wanting to take over from men. It's about women wanting to partner with men so that together we can build a better society.
Keep watching.
Keep watching.
Keep watching NIPSS Policy TV.
Charting a path towards transiting women from having limited economic power, voice, and choice to acquiring skills, resources, and opportunities required to access and compete equitably in the markets has become imperative. Towards this end, harmonization and validation workshop on women economic empowerment indicators in the Women Economic Empowerment Policy Action Plan and Women Economic Empowerment Monitoring and Evaluation Framework was organized by the Federal Ministry of Budget and Economic Planning in collaboration with the National Institute for Policy and Strategic Studies NIPSS and Development Research and Policy Center DRPC in Abuja. Participants came from gender desk officers of federal ministries, departments, agencies, as well as civil society groups.
And on that note, I welcome all of you. It's about women, but also not leaving the men behind. It's about harmonization It's about learning. It's about sitting up to our own responsibilities.
The Executive Director, DRPC, Dr. Judith Ann Walker, in her welcome remarks through Dr. Stanley Upai, Director of Projects, DRPC, emphasized on the challenging yet undeniably rewarding endeavor of economic empowerment for women.
The journey towards economic empowerment for women is a challenging yet undeniably rewarding endeavor, if you would agree with me. Women's economic empowerment is not merely a component of gender equality, it is the cornerstone of a thriving and equitable society. By empowering women economically, we not only improve individual lives, but also drive sustainable development. We bolster economic growth and strengthen families and communities.
The Director General, NIPSS, Professor Ayo Omotayo, in his goodwill message delivered by Dr. Umar Musa MNI, Acting Director of Research, NIPSS, said, "The National Institute considers gender equality and social inclusion very critical components in the discharge of its mandate."
The National Institute, KURU, was established in 1979 as a high-level center of reflection, research, and dialogue. It attracts academic of intellectual excellence, policy initiators and executors, and other citizens irrespective of gender, with high level of practical experience and wisdom from different sectors of national life in Nigeria. The Institute is involved in training, policy research, dialogue, and advocacy. It provides training for both male and female, senior executives from public and private sectors, armed forces, political parties, religious leaders, civil society, and trade unions. These are Nigerians with capacity to influence the direction of policies, programs, and development. The National Institute considers gender equality and social inclusion critical components in the discharge of its mandate. It strongly believes that public policies and programs in Nigeria impact citizens differently along gender and social lines. And consequently, the National Institute ensures the integration of gender and social inclusion in project and program design and implementation.
Mrs. Olasumbo Ayinde Yakub, Director, National Monitoring and Evaluation Department, Ministry of Budget and Economic Planning, did a presentation on current indicators in women economic empowerment, policy, and action plan.
The National Development Plan and even the current agenda of Mr. President lay much emphasis on inclusion. And that inclusion includes women and disability, people living with disability. So inclusion is very fundamental to current agenda of the current administration agenda. And the WE policy is robust, comprehensive in terms of extraying the sector issues and providing policy recommendation on how we forge ahead to ensure our Nigerian women are economically empowered.
There were other presentations on current indicators in National Women Economic Empowerment Monitoring and Evaluation Framework.
In line with the Sustainable Development Goals 2030 and the Gender Agenda, Nigeria has, through its previous national development aspirations, such as the Economic Recovery and Growth Plan, the ROGP, and the current National Development Plan 2021-2025, has ensured the mainstreaming of gender issues in the development of government projects, programs, and policies.
Policy is policy, framework is framework. But these are tools that we use for planning purposes. And it is no surprising that the DRPC has partnered with all these things, with the agencies, Ministry of Women Affairs, Ministry of Budget and National Planning to come up with these documents. They are all tilted towards addressing we issues and also charting the way forward for us to make progress.
The only way to solve our fragmentation problem, the only way to make ministries speak to each other is through data. And so when we sit at the Executive Council meeting, the Minister of Budget and Planning, who is the custodian of our data and evidence, is able to tell the ESCO that here is what we are doing, here is the impact, here is the gap. That is their role.
The participants were given the opportunity to interact and make valuable contributions.
If you empower one woman, and empowerment is not just financial or economical, it's also educational. And when you empower one woman, you have empowered at least the thousands of persons.
When you look at the policy document of financial inclusion, there is the role of development partners, there is the role of government and other stakeholders. What I'm saying here is that what is going to be the role of development partners, women groups, in ensuring that this particular framework work the purpose for which it is intended.
The number of women in Nigeria's National Assembly dropped by 19%, which is a lot. So you can imagine that in the Senate, it's just a meager 3%, and in the House of Reps, 4%. So, at decision making, if women are not there, who represents, who makes decisions that will favor us? So, in all this we want to achieve, can we really achieve that when we don't have women there?
The participants were divided into 4 groups to review, refine, and develop indicators that must be specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. Each group presented their findings.
Group 1 focus is on, I can say, women in agriculture. That is what it's all about. And we discovered that most of the items are in alignment, the ones in the action plan and the framework, particularly with respect to issue of growing funding for women in agriculture. We discovered that it aligns.
Group 2, we were saddled with the responsibility of looking at entrepreneurship, education, and skill acquisition. With the time we had, we could not actually do anything on education and skills acquisition. So this meeting can be in your office, maybe 30 minutes, so one can wrap up.
For Group 3, and we looked at the traditional labor market, how it favors the women. So we went through the indicators from the cross-cutting accelerator. We checked through that of the policy document and that of the framework document. So those ones that aligns, we put them in the green color, while those that we found that is not found in the policy but is captured in the framework, we put that one as color blue. Then the ones we feel is not relevant at all, we didn't really expunge it out, it's still there, but we put it as red, so that if they will further want to look at it and see a reason why it should still be there, so we just color that one red. Then we color the one in yellow, which is in the policy but is actually not found in the framework, and we believe it is relevant.
All the policies that had no reference or indication for gender, we added them, included them to make sure that they are gender sensitive. So the long and short of it was that we did our assignment successfully, but we wish we had more time to complete everything that was given to us. Thank you.
It is a general understanding that the economic empowerment of women is not an aspiration, but a realized fact where women have equal opportunities to thrive. Collective efforts can lay the groundwork for an inclusive and prosperous Nigeria.
think, it's a discussion that is ongoing, and this is the first step. From the introductory remarks, you can hear the commitment that this is just the first phase, and we are starting with about 7 to 8 states, hoping that we cascade it to the 36 states of the Federation so that we get their buy-ins. Because if we deal with only 6 to 7 to 8 states, it means the other states might be left out. So we're going to get people on the same page. So this is just the first step towards the domestication. At the end of the program tomorrow, we are going to get a commitment from the commissioners, those we are training, because we are going to develop collectively an action plan, taking them through the steps, how they can domesticate the we policy in their various states. And DRPC and NIPSS will continue to support them to ensure that this comes to fruition.
And I think the policy is quite commendable, and it actually creates a pathway for implementation of action plan on women economic development. And I seriously believe that if all the states domesticate and maybe create a structure at each local government to implement the policy, it's going to go a long way in affecting the lives of women and children in every facet of area in Nigeria. So I actually recommend to every state in Nigeria to emulate those states that are about to domesticate the policy to also take the same line, because it's going to help a lot in achieving the already existing poverty eradication plans in most of these states.
I've learned that there is a lot to take in because Nigerian women are passing through a lot, being from the north, south, west, and east. If you look at the climatic condition, it's affecting them rigorously in their various way of life. And when we talk about farming, yes, farming is a very good and effective thing because Nigeria is a land that is abundant. But the issue of farming, for me, I think it should be in a strategic way, in a situation that agricultural farming should be positioned in a technological wise way. That is an easy way of doing things, because if you look at the climatic condition of women today, it's not easy to be farming in this kind of stressful and bad weather. So for me, according to what the minister says, machines are a good start. And what I'm going to say, what I'm taking from the program so far is economic empowerment policy and domestication is a key and is a way for Nigerian women to participate and also to manage their household and also maybe to even sell beyond their community.
There's been a lot of take-home from this program, especially in terms of trying to empower women so that at least they can have an equal percentage with the male counterparts. And basically one of the things I've taken away from this program is the issue of giving more access to women in terms of digital literacy and also in terms of technology. So we can also see that a lot of states in Nigeria are also trying to domesticate the we policy so that at least they can get more women engaged in economic empowerment. And I think that is a very lovable idea.
Creation of awareness and capacity building is one of the basic way to go, because a lot of women are into farming, but they don't know the new mechanized or maybe new agricultural technological wise way of doing things to ease their stress. Because if we look at the system today, we have so many female-headed families with, like, maybe, if I may say, like just 5 laborers, because we have so many of widows who are just doing that alone on their own. Unlike the male-headed family, who have like 4 to 5 wives, and maybe they have like children that are growing up to be their own labor forces. But women, in the case of women, it's just like 5 to 6. So economic economic empowerment of women, I think, if should be passed across all the 6 geopolitical zones, I think there is a lot to go through, and it's going to be effective, and it's going to help a lot of Nigerian women, because insurgency is one of the basic problems that is carrying away people from farming. And so within themselves, within the mechanized system of farming and within the economical way of empowerment, you can subsidize for another thing.
As a member of the National Institute, you are constantly supposed to be working, wherever you are placed, towards a better society.
Thank you for joining us on this segment. Today we have a very special guest. He is a prominent Nigerian that really does not need any introduction, but I'll introduce him anyway. He's a Nigerian businessman. He is the co-founder and former Group Executive Director, Sahara Group, an energy conglomerate with operations spanning the entire energy chain in Nigeria, Africa, and beyond. He was a key member of Partnering Against Corruption Initiative, PASI, United Nations as pioneer member of the advisory board of the Private Sector Advisory Group Fund, the African Philanthropy Forum, amongst many others. Join me as I welcome Mr. Tonye Patrick Cole, MNI. Thank you for joining us today on the program.
Thank you very much.
Now, you were here as a participant. What was your experience like?
I think it was, first and foremost, one of the best experiences that I've had educationally. I'd come into this environment, first having gone into politics, but also interacting for the very first time in close quarters with people outside of the industry with which I had set up a business and come to know. And that cross-section of meeting public servants, the military officers, the police force, the immigration, the paramilitary, was just such a beautiful experience. And coming to see Nigeria from a much wider version, no regrets.
And how long ago was that?
This was Sec 43, so this was 3 years. We're now in 45, so this will be 3 years back.
Now, how has the experience impacted on your person and your career?
So first and foremost, I think the network of MNIs that are out there who give support, who give encouragement, who you can reach out to help channel new thoughts, especially when you're thinking of what next to do, how to move forward. That network is always there. And that network, you make the best out of it. So I'm very grateful for the network of past alumni. I remember going to see President Babangida, General Babangida, as soon as I graduated. And one of the first things he did, once he saw the MNI badge, he was the Sec 1. He said, "This is one of the best things that you have done." And it gave me the full understanding as to how deep this network is. I saw also General Obasanjo, who happened to be the founder of NIPSS, the initiator, and all of that. And again, he was very encouraging about the fact that I did that. What I did not know was back then, when I came into NIPSS, was that my father was also part of the originating set that thought it through. So Obasanjo had the idea and gave it to my father, who was a civil servant at Cabinet Office at the time. And they were the foundational members who thought through the whole idea of how NIPSS should work. So I think it was full circle for me coming back to see people and meet people who originated it and I now became a process of it, even without knowing that they were the ones that started it. That for me was good.
Oh, wonderful. Now, sir, what is your philosophy of life?
That's interesting. You must be able to make a difference. So for me, every human being is created and given a talent and a gift that is unique to them. And that gift, once it's translated, must make a difference to the people that you meet. And so when I think about myself and what gift I have been given, it is to help people discover themselves, who they really are, and what purpose they're here to achieve. And then secondly, within the context of the nation and all of that, I find myself always to be in the forefront of pioneering things that people assume to be impossible, difficult. Then I find myself going in there. In business, that's what we did. We went into a sector that people thought was not for Nigerians, nobody had done it, and all of that. And went in there, pioneered it, broke it open, and today many Nigerians do the business that we were doing.
Now, how would you react to the narrative that the ANI Association is an elitist group?
I don't know. So first and foremost, anything that has a few number of people in a large crowd would always be seen as elitist, whether you like it or not. The entire number of ANI members is not up to 3,000 in the whole nation. So you have a small group of people who are in the civil service, who are in the military, who are in the public sector, who are in politics, who are in business. And so people will naturally say that this is elitist. But no, what I would see is that somewhere, somehow, by configuration, we have a group of people that have been called to serve this nation, and the best should be made of them. It's not about elitism. It's about, have you trained people who can now deliver and bring Nigeria to a point where everyone is proud of? I have no regrets about that. And I think we should use ANI and MNI members a lot more in Nigeria.
It's okay. Who is your mentor and why?
That's a wide question for me, because mentors come in different segments depending on what you're doing and how you want to do it. So I have religious mentors, business mentors, political mentors, spiritual mentors, and so on and so forth. And so it's wide and it's different. Where I come from, when it comes to the spiritual mentors, I would put Pastor Adeboye, who is my spiritual father, as one. And he's a mentor that I hold on to. I've learned a lot from him in terms of humility and just the outlook of being able to think bigger, wider, greater than most others would think. And so you see what he has been able to do in that scale. And you know that this is somebody who thinks way, way, way ahead. I like legacy things. I like thinking far ahead. And so from that perspective, that is great. When it comes to, which other one? When it comes to business, let me see. No, when it comes to politics, one of the persons whose political activism has helped me grow over time has been what Nelson Mandela has been able to do. How do you stay focused on a long-term goal, regardless of all the distractions, regardless of all the naysayers, people who tell you it's impossible, it cannot be done, and all of that. But just keep your eyes focused that this is where you're going. No matter how long it takes, you will get there. That from Nelson Mandela, for me, critical. So my political journey is based on, I know where we're going. And how long it's going to take there can be 20 years, it may be longer. But what we want to change cannot be done overnight. And so it requires resilience, tenacity, it requires just a deep belief in what is right. And regardless of what happens today, just stay on it. So those are the kind of mentors that I have. People anybody who can think long-term through the challenges that you have and break odds that nobody believes possible. Those are the kind of people that I like to follow.
Now, finally, what would you recommend to the National Institute to make it better?
Every time I come to NIPSS, I see that, to the Institute especially, I see that there are things that have been improved, The politics is still there. There's still a lot of politics that I don't agree with, but that's politics. That's life. Life is full of all sorts of issues. But what will make NIPSS better? I'll give you 3 things. Number 1, selection criteria coming into NIPSS. You have to take a look at it. Don't allow politics ruin how you select participants, directing staff, and all of that. Understand that this is a premium place. It's a place for the best minds to come. It's a place for people who understand networking, who can carry the idea and ideology further. So that is critical. Drive that. Number 2, you, as a policy and strategic study group, you have to be known across the world as a place where intellectual excellence is brought through. I've always looked at it and I've said that we have, as NIPSS, one of those unique opportunities to be a reference point across board. Now, there are 2 dangers. There's a positive and a danger with that. The danger of it is because it's strategic, people are afraid that if you put out what you are doing here, then it releases national security on the outside. So there's one. But however, that notwithstanding, there's so much learning that you can get from cross-pollination, from people outside coming in and taking a look and growing. So you have to find and strike a balance. If we don't do that, we would only be improving ourselves within our own capacity and our own limited knowledge. I don't think that's right. So as an institution, what I want to see NIPSS down the line is that when they talk about strategic institutions globally, then NIPSS should be one. If they're talking about it, if we start in Africa, we say here in Nigeria that is premium, no problem. But when we look at it in Africa and we rank it, where do we rank? And I did that when I was coming here, and I found that we were not ranked. And the reason why is that we don't push out our papers, we don't publicize what we want and all of that, and I don't think that's right. So for example, my research project here, when I shared it here with the directorate here, by the time they finished, all of them said, make sure that this is published. That for them, I don't know what I did, but for them it was good enough to be a published work. And so we started working on that. My university in Oxford, where I was doing a program about the same time, and I shared it with my professor after I'd finished. I said, please take a look at this, proofread it, and all. And she came back and said, this must be published. Now, those are the kind of things that we must inculcate within participants that are here. That your research project is not just a project, it's not something to just go and sit on a shelf. It is critical that it must be published and go out there, and people see it either as an academic work or something that they can refer to. And you have 10 months here, and you don't want you don't want to be remembered for doing something different. No, it's not right. So we have resource, we have people. If you ask me, NIPSS has to enter into that space where people refer to the research work that we do here for setting policy in Africa if we want to start, in West Africa if we want to be smaller, Africa if we want to be slightly bigger, or globally if you really, really want to take it forward. I think we can do that.
Thank you so much for being our guest. We know you have a busy schedule, but you still found time to talk with us. We really appreciate it.
God bless.
Well, that's it from here. The program continues. Thank you for staying.
It's new, it's fresh, it's all about policies and strategies. Watch out for NIPSS Policy TV programs on NTA News 24. Tune in on Mondays, Tuesdays, Fridays, and Saturdays, 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. on DSTV Channel 419, GoTV Channel 26, Star Times Channels 101 and 433, and Free TV Channel 703. Miss this and miss out on policies that will affect you and our country. Join us.
There can be no enduring change and sustainable development without the promotion and protection of the well-being of the citizenry and those on the margins of our economy. Empowering women economically isn't just morally imperative, but also makes economic sense. Research shows that boosting women's economic participation improves national economies, household productivity, living standards, and citizens' overall well-being. Therefore, women's empowerment is also a way of reducing women's vulnerability and dependency in all spheres of life. It can be noted that the aggregates of educational, political, health, and legal empowerment are key to women's empowerment in Nigeria. That's it on the program. Thank you for your time. I'll see you soon. I am Lydia Odijochi. Goodbye.